You're good.
So after a 5-year absence for me, less for you, Jay-Z, because you and Dan took over after I stepped away. We are back, right? We're back on the Grand Central Sports Hub channel. Our Sunday beef. Forget about the football pregame shows. We're here, right? Isn't that better? I
Who
think
needs
that's
who
better.
needs Michael Strahan and Chris Mortensen? Wait, he's not even doing it anymore, is
He
he?
passed away. Yeah.
Oh, gee. Well, we're off to a great start. We are off to a great start on the Sunday beef. Jesus.
Yeah. 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 So, all right. Anyway, listen,
Oh man.
yeah,
That's why
that's
we're
why we
doing it.
call it a
That's why we're
soft
on
opening,
here.
right? That's why we call this a soft opening. I don't think anybody's watching yet anyway. So they're all making their appetizers so they can time them for the 1 o'clock kickoff. Anyway, here we are. Um, Beef and Jay-Z and Beef. I'm not territorial about whose name goes first. That doesn't matter to me. But we're back, and this idea to relaunch our pod literally came last night while I was doing my dishes on an exhilarating Saturday night. We started texting. We said, "Why not? Let's do this, right?" So here we are. It's good to see you again. So I was thinking
So
about this.
I contrary to what you might believe out there, this is not the first time I've talked to Seth in 5 years. This
No,
is just the first time we've done a podcast in 5 years. But are you wearing a jackalope hat
yes, I am. Yes, I am.
from
So
Nashville?
yes, I was. So Jackalope Brewery, they are not a sponsor. They are not a sponsor of ours. But this hat is from a great
They
road
should
trip.
be.
Jason, our buddy Dan Sadowski, and Jerry was on that trip, wasn't he? We
Yeah,
took
yes,
Jerry,
yes.
and then
So
we took
Diamond
down to
Dan, as you may
Nashville.
have known him from our previous podcast, Diamond Dan.
Yeah, Diamond Dan. He can't join us today, but I think his elusiveness will add to the podcast. I think it'll make it stronger. I definitely think he's down in Tampa. But yeah, this was from a road trip we took down to see the Rangers and the Predators in Nashville, great city, one of the legendary road trips. We won't bore people with the details, but it was like right around Christmas time, I think, in 2017, wasn't it? 2018,
Yes.
something like that.
It
So
was yep. I think it was 2018.
2018. So anyway, here we are. Beef, just to get this out of the way. So my radio partner in college came up with a better name for me than I had. I came up with a horrendous radio name on 106 VIC, the student station. I was just into the WPLJ thing at the time, and I thought I would come up
WPLJ,
with
Scott and Todd in the morning.
Scott and Todd. Hey, Mr. DJ, right? That's what I
Phone
thought I would be.
scams. The phone scams were great.
Right. I thought I would be Mr. DJ, and I'd have my real first name and a fake second name. And my name was Seth Brooks, which was really stupid at the time. In fact, I think I launched my New York City radio career with Seth Brooks, and
Is
I
that
had to get
because
away from
Shady Brook Lane? You were thinking about the street.
So anyway, my radio partner at the time, my hosting partner at the time, came up with the name Steakhouse because I like to eat, and I was as big as a house at that time. So my friends thought that was way too long. So my college roommates, who I don't mind naming, Dan and Pat, shortened it, and they came up with the name Beef, and that's where this came from. So that's where we are. That's where we are.
That's fantastic. I mean, mine are just my initials, and I do believe that I should sue the other Jay-Z for ripping me off because I'm quite certain that I actually was called Jay-Z first. So you have the jackalope hat on, and I'm just going to discuss because we have done this before, but we intentionally wear certain paraphernalia on our show, and I actually strategically picked the Hendrick Motorsports hat today because they're the only damn thing that I root for that wins anything. That's it. I was like, I went through my hat, Seth. I said, Yankees, absolutely not. It's the dead of winter, and there's nothing to be excited about. I said, I actually don't own a Knicks hat. So that was out, unfortunately. I said, Rangers, you know what? They may have won the Winter Classic, but we're going to discuss a little later about the problems there. Yeah. Absolutely not. And then I said, Giants, hell no. And then I looked at the Hendrick hat and I said, the old standby contends and wins championships of all of the teams I root for
Yeah.
are the Hendrick Motorsports cars. We're not going to bore you with a NASCAR conversation today, especially not in winter.
No,
There's
let's.
a reason why I wore the hat. And
Let's.
my big Sunday beef is that Hendrick Motorsports is the only team I root for that wins anything. That's my big Sunday beef.
Yeah,
That's my beef of the week. That's my beef of the week.
I like it.
That's our
Seriously,
segment on the show.
I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing. You know, we're playing on the playground at Thiels Elementary almost 40 years ago, and here we are right now, right? That's kind of cool.
Listen, we're running around, you know, who knows what has evolved over there, but it was a wonderful facility for an elementary school. It was huge out there. I remember, like, the field. It was crazy. High schools don't have space that Thiels Elementary School had. The place was awesome.
So, listen, it is a Sunday. It is a football Sunday, the last regular season football Sunday of the year. Given where we are, northern New Jersey, I think we do need to start off with the Giants and what's going on, Jason. And, you know, everything I'm seeing, and, you know, it's very tough. I mean, as an anchor, you know, you have to parse out what's real and what's not real, right? But I'm putting the picture together, and it seems like, you know, the Giants are leaning towards keeping Joe Schoen as GM. So obviously, I think there's a less than zero chance Mike Kafka stays on as head coach. Let's just, you know, say that right now. So I'm just wondering. The more I'm reading, I saw something yesterday where even if the Ravens lose to the Steelers tonight, Harbaugh is safe. Again, you never know until it actually happens. You know, and I think Tomlin is kind of a pipe dream at this point. I just wonder, you remember the Trent Baalke situation in Jacksonville last year where Shad Khan kept him on, and, you know, he started to interview all these coaches, even Liam Cohen, and they didn't want to work with Baalke, and he had no choice but to fire Baalke. And then Liam Cohen comes in. So crazy. Yeah, I just wonder, Jason, you know, I'm curious what you think. If this becomes a situation where Schoen stays on now, but, you know, ownership, you know, goes through this process and realizes that nobody wants to work with Schoen. I don't think he's a polarizing guy in terms of his attitude and his approach, but I'm sorry what's happened over the last several years. It can't be all coaching with this bad record. I think a good chunk of it's coaching with the Giants. I do. But I don't think it's all coaching. I know John Mara and that regime there, they don't like full regime change. But I just wonder if they start out with Schoen as the GM here and then realize it's not going to work.
Yeah, so first off, as depressing as the Giants situation is, I just want to put some levity onto this. At least they have an interception this year, unlike the Jets. Do you know that if the Jets don't get an interception today, they'll be the first team in NFL history that has never had an interception in a season? Like, what in the God's green earth is that? But
so, like in basketball, we talk about defense leading to offense, and defense has not led to offense for the Jets this year. That's for sure.
Oh, goodness gracious. But the Giants situation is tricky, right? Because you've gone through so much change in a short time. And this is an organization that was so stable for so long. Like, the Steelers are the most stable organization in sports when it comes to coaches, GM situation, that it's been really messy. I have a fundamental problem with replacing this coach and letting Schoen pick the next coach and not doing a full wipe. It doesn't make sense to me that you're going to do this and you're and so what? Like, what are you trying to say here? That to your point, it's all coaching? Or are you just trying to say, or is the organization trying to say, well, maybe we can't do any better on the GM, so whatever, we'll just let him hire a coach? Whatever it is, it's not clean. It doesn't make sense. And quite frankly, I don't trust Joe Schoen anyway.
So I'm not on the inside. I just, regurgitate or, turn it to my own words what I'm reading from guys like Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter, Tom Pelissero, ESPN, all those guys. And I'm not attributing this to any of them, but again, all I can go off is from what I've been reading. Ownership there or people in the building there have been receptive to the fact that Joe Schoen has modernized the operation, because back when Dave Gettleman was there. From what I understand, they were putting magnets on a draft board. Now, at least, we're in the 21st century, right?
Yeah.
But whatever that might be, it has not translated into wins. And I look at their record, especially over the last few years, and I say to myself, yeah, I think coaching's a big problem. I think we've seen a lot this year in terms of accountability issues, and Dable let a lot happen, especially with Abdul Carter, and there's more behind the scenes. But I don't think it's all coaching. I do think some of that is, on the personnel team. I do. So I understand that you don't want to blow this up and you don't want to turn the whole thing over, but you're just going to hang on to a guy for the sake of hanging on to the guy. It's like, with a coach, and I hear this argument all the time. Well, let's keep him because who else is out there, right? And I think that's a terrible argument. And I don't know if that's the conversation you're having in that building right now, but I just can't. I can't sit here and accept that this guy's going to get another shot with the record they've had over the last few years.
I will say one thing with the Giants, and maybe something we can, and I like to tell, I know we don't agree on this necessarily. The record is who you are, as I believe Bill Parcells said once upon a time. Yep. There is a lot of things that make the future bright from a Giants fan perspective. So when you look at a few teams this year, Patriots, the Bears, right? They did a coaching change, and they were relatively a very similar team as they were last year, right? Because they had a quarterback that they were comfortable in, and under the new coach, the quarterback flourished. I am here to tell you that I think with the Giants actually having a quarterback with Jackson Dart, a passable offensive line, a functional offensive line.
They've been better this year. They have. Yes.
A high-end wide receiver, looks like a high-end running back, that a really good coach, if you get the really good coach, can't come in here and do a turnaround in this league fast.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think we can transition to this. Who's it going to be? Like I said, I don't think Harbaugh or Tomlin are happening, whoever loses tonight. I just don't. Everything I'm reading kind of I don't see it at this point. So that takes you to your second tier, right? And we've talked about this. I'm not thinking Super Bowl right now. That is the furthest thing from my mind. I'm tired.
You mean they're not going to win one next year?
No, I'm tired of the Giants being a laughing stock across the country. Something bad happens in a game, everybody pokes fun of them. The Giants at times have been a national embarrassment, right? That collapse against Denver this year, other things that have happened. I want somebody that's going to come in and stabilize this freaking situation. That's where we are right now. So I think that kind of brings you to a guy, and this is an intriguing name. It looks like Stefanski is going to be let go in Cleveland. I think Stefanski deserves another shot because I think he's a product of the dysfunctional ownership there. Apparently Jimmy Haslam really likes him, but Andrew Berry's going to have the final call on this, or he's going to have a big say in it. The GM, I don't think he should keep his job given what he's done there. But, so I think the top two guys right now, you're probably looking at Kevin Stefanski or Mike McCarthy. And you know what? I'd be fine with either of them. And in my mind, McCarthy comes in. Maybe he's not going to take you to a Super Bowl, but he's going to give you 3 to 5 years of credibility. I think he'll hire a good staff. He dealt with the craziness that is Jerry Jones down in Dallas, so I think he's capable. And then, in 3 to 5 years when McCarthy, when you get to the wild card round of the divisional round, you can't get past that. You get the next guy that's going to take you over the top. That's kind of my thought process right now.
This sounds like another guy we're very familiar with in New York City recently.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Are you saying Mike McCarthy can be our Tom Thibodeau of the Giants?
Yeah, listen, I mean,
that's the comparison. Like, Thibodeau was brought in as a guy who didn't win it all, competent coach for respectability. He actually did more than that. So I'm understating what he did, but I'm more talking about when they hired him. That's what you're likening McCarthy to? Is that what I'm feeling?
Yeah, I think so. I'll tell you what I don't want. I don't want a coordinator, especially another offensive coordinator, because that's what Dable is. I don't see the point in firing Dable and then bringing somebody in like him to replace him. And, I know there are ties with Hafley and Anarumo. I think they're, New Jersey guys too. And those would be nice stories. I want somebody who's done this before. I think that's very important. I'm not saying these guys can't do it. I think they probably deserve shots somewhere else. I think for this particular job, you need a guy that's done this before. And I know McCarthy, it's not going to get a lot of people excited. It's kind of a boring hire, but I'm looking for a culture builder. And I don't think they have that right now. And I think McCarthy can come in and, a guy like Stefanski maybe can come in and do that.
So what you're saying is you don't want a coordinator from the Detroit Lions. Because that hasn't worked out well. And the other team down the hallway at MetLife Stadium has it.
It's worked out for the Bears, though, with Ben Johnson. So.
See, that's the thing. Like, but where the Giants are at, I agree with you. It has to be someone who's done the job. And I know it's retreads, but there's situations for every type of person. And this situation, as you can tell from the last, how many coaches? I've lost count. That's the problem.
Shermer,
I've lost count.
Yeah.
Right? This
McAdoo
is insane.
Yeah.
This is insane. Yeah. And the fact that I saw somebody, Antonio Pierce, would get an interview for this job, I almost threw my meal against the wall.
I'm not for it. I'm not for it. I want it established. I know he took over a tough situation in Vegas, and they're completely dysfunctional. And Rappaport and Pelissero, those guys are saying it seems Carroll's on thin ice out there, and it doesn't surprise me. But I want to touch on something you said before about Dart and Scadaboo. Yes, I think you have your quarterback. Yes, I think you have your running back. And I'm not asking those guys, especially Dart, to change the way they play. I just wonder, given the way they do play, is the window on guys like that a little bit shorter, right? Because, Dart, we've seen the multiple concussion tests this year, Scadaboo with the leg injury. I just wonder, I don't know if Dart's going to be Eli Manning, who sticks around for, 12, 15 years, right?
It's that's a very small skill set now,
Yeah. I just wonder, does that kind of speed up? I'm not saying Dart's going to be, a 5-year and done type of guy. I worry a little more about Scadaboo, the way he plays, than Dart plays, obviously. So I do think the Giant job is a very attractive job. Neighbors also, Brian Burns, the offensive line was better. I do think this can be a Vrabel type of situation where you come in, and hopefully the Giants don't get as hard of a schedule next year, because that schedule was murder this season. I mean, even in the best of cases, I don't think they would have done well against that schedule. You see where they are right now. We'll see. But
can I actually tell you the most maddening part about this team at times to me was how awful the defense was. And obviously Shane Bowen, we don't need to discuss that guy. Shane, I shouldn't even say his name. He's not worthy of speaking his name, but there's talent on this defense. Abdul Carter, and this defense on paper was supposed to be very good. Yeah. And the Giants have got to bring in a coordinator here that is also exceptional for the defense, because that is ready to go. Like, they should be good, and they were bad. Yeah, and that was that's my big beef about the Giants.
Bullen, who's filled in, he's been better. Abdul Carter's been better. I think the defense has been a little better. I think they've responded. If you remember, the Giants had a lot of trouble hiring a defensive coordinator a few years ago, and Shane Bowen was the guy they landed on.
I wonder also, Dable people didn't want to work with him.
Well, there were compatibility issues there, right? He and Wink Martindale basically threw down.
I would not want to get into a fight in a dark alley with Wink Martindale.
No.
I honestly would not want to cross that man. He reminded me of like a Buddy Ryan type. He'll start swinging at you.
And we were going to go to this game today to celebrate your new car, right?
Lord.
We're going to tailgate. You brought up the idea.
I have a brand new big SUV that I said it's the tailgate vehicle. And I'm like, well, maybe we go to Giants Cowboys. And then last week we were like, no.
The tickets just,
I know.
I had season tickets for a year. You were part of it. We tailgated. And you know what? I didn't buy, some people buy the season tickets as an investment to sell them and make money. I said, if I'm going to get these season tickets, which I didn't handle in the best way at home, but we did it. I went to all the games. We went to all the games. You came with me to most of them, even on the cold, rotten days.
Right.
But this winter's been
Tailgating is
cold.
fun.
I don't know if I could have made it through 8 or 9 games at home this year. So,
No,
so that's kind of where I stand on the Giants.
Yeah, I'm sick of not having meaningful football basically past Halloween at this point.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
I said to everybody this year, just get me to Halloween, right? And then get me to Thanksgiving, where the team's like still in the hunt graphic that you see on Fox or CBS, right? And not because, you know, all the other teams are bad, because they're legitimately decent. Because maybe they're 5-5 or, you know, like 4-6 or something like that. They have a shot, but that it wasn't meant to be. The turning point was that Broncos game where they just collapsed in the fourth quarter. After that, I didn't think they were bouncing back from that. So, all right. So we'll touch on the Jets. We're not Jets fans here, but we'll touch on the Jets. Here's my thought on Aaron Glenn. I think he needs to stay another year, and I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but if you fire a coach after 1 year, you know, I mean, you're really sending up red flags about the culture in the organization. I'm not saying keep him just to keep him. I do think at points, you know, there have been some encouraging things, but I'm looking at this from an organizational standpoint. They're a mess right now. And if you dump him after 1 season, a guy that's tied to the organization, I mean, what does it say about your organization at all? I think Muji, the GM, I think you got to give him a shot. I think he's done some good things. It's a rebuild. They don't have their quarterback. Maybe if they can get that number 1 pick, Mendoza would come in and be the guy. I'm very encouraged by what I've seen from him. But I think a change right now at the head coaching spot. Look, next year's fair game. If he comes and gets off to a bad start, you want to make a move, fine. Or if he doesn't meet expectations next year, fine. But that's kind of where I stand on them.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for their fans. They just can't do anything.
That's what it's come to, just pity at this point.
It's been pity my whole life. I mean, I was just saying, at least we have Super Bowls as Giants fans, and really good Super Bowls, like great wins. And there's a history there, and they've been a successful franchise. The Jets ain't got nothing. Okay, that's it.
No, I was in
I have an observation to make real quick.
Yeah,
this isn't about the Jets. Our last show was 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah.
Why is our production quality worse 5 years later? We both look like we're in a bunker right now. Okay. We both look like we're being hidden in a bunker. I have nothing. I'm not. You are. You've got some like weird yellow lighting. I have no lighting. My living room lighting is awful. I got shadows in my face.
Yeah.
Are we both prisoner? Like, people will want to see newspapers that we're not. This is not from like 17 years ago.
So on that note, right, I don't sit in my garage anymore and do my serious remote reports. I go to another location because I just don't want to sit in a 48-degree freezer. So now I'm in the alcove between my house and my garage. I'm at the bottom of the stairs. So I was going to have a background here. I debated, right? I went through backgrounds. I was going to have the garden. I was going to have MetLife Stadium, as much as I don't like MetLife Stadium. It looks like a giant air conditioner. And I was going to go with, surprisingly, Kauffman Stadium out in Kansas City, because it's one of the best ballparks I've ever been to.
And it's almost gone.
And then I was, looking at, I still call it Rich Stadium, but Ralph Wilson Stadium. Now, Highmark, it's Swan Song today, obviously. I was going to go with that, but you wouldn't have been able to see all of me for some reason in the background. Oh, that's Abby. That's Abby, right? That's not Rondo.
No, that's Rondo.
No, that's Rondo? Oh, they look the same to me.
Yes. Abby is sleeping on the couch.
So I was going to use a background, and I didn't, and this is where I am. So it's not great. I don't have my microphone. My microphone's elsewhere. So I probably sound like the acoustics in here are awful, except for the Disney World luggage that's stacked up behind me. But
your dulcet tones don't need a microphone. You're fine.
Emphasizing the word dull. Yeah. So but the graphics you've done have been terrific. Yes. I think they're great. You're the tech guy.
The graphics are wonderful. AI is a very nice tool, because I have no artistic ability. So
I want to touch on the NFL.
That's why we look this. Yeah,
real quick. it's wide open in my mind this year, right? So I think the only two teams or the only two divisions that don't really stand a chance would be the NFC South and the AFC North, whether it's Pittsburgh or Baltimore or Tampa Bay or Carolina. By the way, I think it's still ridiculous that, a team with a better record is going to have to go travel to an 8-9 team because they won a division in the wild card round. But
yeah, what would you know what? I don't disagree. And the NFC South should be disbanded at this point. But
yes.
my question is, you have to make the division still mean something if
right.
you win a division.
Right.
There has to be an incentive to win the divisions. How do you straddle that?
Right.
How do you straddle that issue? Or do you just say this is an anomaly, or does it happen too often? Like, I don't know, because I do think winning the division has to carry some kind of bonus.
It does, and I think that's basically what the owners said last year. I think they voted on this last year, right? And it was struck down to do it by record, and they decided not to go that way. I don't know. I think a good team, though, is a good team, and let's say whoever it's going to be that's going to have to go to Carolina or Tampa Bay, they should be able to win because they're that much better. I understand that. What's going on there, by the way?
He just yawned, so clearly he's bored of us.
Gotcha. But I'll tell you the two teams that really impress me right now. I would say the Texans and the Seahawks, right? So the Texans with DeMeco Ryans, and then the Seahawks, how they dismantled the Niners last night. And I know they're without Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall. But to me, those two defenses, especially for an NFC team, to go into Seattle and deal with that crowd and deal with that defense, those two defenses are among the best in the league. So I'm not sitting here making a prediction. I'm just saying, those two teams probably impressed me the most. I'd really like to see the Bills do it this year. I really, really would. Especially in the last year of that stadium. I know they're going to be a low seed, but there's no Mahomes. There may not be Lamar Jackson for Josh Allen to have to face. Potentially, depending on how the seeds line up. I'm not sure if they would face each other. But, I just wonder if the Bills' defense can hold up. And what gives me hope and what gives me pause is what they did against Philadelphia in the second half of that game with a lot of younger guys as well. So, I'd like to see the Bills. I think the rub with the Pats is the schedule, although to me, going down to Baltimore, even though it's a compromised Baltimore team, I think that was a good win for them. The Chargers, Herbert, he's taken almost 60 sacks this year, and I think his health is in question. Does he have the staying power? The Jaguars have turned it around very quickly. I think a lot more quickly than people had thought. Are they for real? And then, the Broncos, they ended up being the 1 seed here, but they've played in a lot of close games. So I don't know. I think it's wide open in the AFC.
I love that. Listen, this year, changing of the guard. I mean, that's really what you've seen this year. Kansas City being out, and they may only be out for this year. So to your point, the other teams have to take advantage of this. And if the Bills do not take advantage of not having to go through Kansas City or Baltimore, then I don't think they're going to win a Super Bowl in our lifetime. Yeah. Seriously, at this point, my concern with the Bills is it's the Josh Allen show, or they may not make it. I don't like their supporting cast. You mentioned their defense, but I don't see their offensive game breaking ability other than Josh Allen running and throwing
and Cook. Yeah.
Dude, are they dynamic enough, and options? Or if you just focus on Cook, you shut him down, does the rest of the offense get shut down? Yeah. I don't like them. I know they could turn it on. I don't like them. I am rooting really hard for two teams here overall. I love the Bears story. Maybe a soft spot for the city of Chicago. I don't know. But Caleb Williams is a dude. Watching him last weekend, I haven't seen him a lot, to be fair, but his body language, his command of the game, he looked like he was having fun out there. Yeah. Like he looked like he was out there just on a Sunday afternoon with his boys having a blast, and he is a dude. And I really like the Broncos this year. So, but to your point, it is wide open, and that's fun from our perspective because we don't have a dog in the hunt.
No,
and
sadly we don't.
To see how it shakes out. I was all over San Fran until last night, and injuries for them will always be their Achilles heel. But Seattle's defense, man, is so good.
To go in there and
I don't think the Niners have any kind of cakewalk. I think they're going to have a very difficult time getting out of the conference.
I mean, I think, we'll get a better understanding of this as, when the seeds line up at the end of the day today. But, so the Bears, up until a couple of weeks ago, that Green Bay game, I was wondering if Caleb Williams could rise up and meet the moment. And in that situation, he clearly did. So I think there's a capability there. And Ben Johnson has clearly made the difference with Caleb Williams. There's no doubt about that. My problem with Philly is they can't score. They can't score. And you're going to have to find a way to score some points. I know you deal with a lot of grinded out type of games in the playoffs, but I think part of it is the fact that Kellen Moore is gone. I think Patullo, who the Philly fans, I have cousins down there, they can't stand him, and they think it's because of him. They can't.
Well, the head coach is a scumbag too.
No, I'm not a fan. It's all about. He's
in the right. Well, let's put it this way: he works in the right city for who he is.
Right. No, it's all about him. Like even his players were rolling their eyes at him after he pulled that stuff, against the Bills. So, you guys could barely get a first down in the second half, and that's what you're doing. So,
experience matters, and they have the experience.
They do.
Experience, right?
They do, and that pedigree matters. It does. So yeah, the Niner game last night really concerned me. I mean, I know Seattle's defense is terrific, but to only put up 3 points, that was a problem for me, and I don't think the Packers can do it without Micah Parsons long term. So I think
I will say,
yeah,
one thing on experience, and I know Baltimore seems like they don't have it this year, but if they make it in today, I wouldn't want to play them. Would not.
Who's that?
Baltimore. I would not want to play Baltimore.
No, I think
they have the pedigree.
They do. The big issue is, Lamar Jackson's been banged up 6 days a week and twice on Sunday this year. And I don't know how much – I don't know. I mean, he'll find a way. Look, he's a 2-time MVP, and he'll figure out a way. But I just don't know if that consistency is there for him in terms of health and, practicing as much as he's needed to this year. I wouldn't want to face Baltimore. I wouldn't. I'd probably rather face Pittsburgh than face Baltimore because everybody keeps talking about the great Aaron Rodgers, but he's not Aaron Rodgers anymore, right? So I think Baltimore would be a tougher matchup. I don't think they can go very far, given where they've been this year, but yeah, I wouldn't want to face them. So, all right, let's transition. Let's move on because I know there's some baseball stuff we both want to get to.
Lord.
Here. So
is there wait a second. Is there baseball stuff? Because I'm not sure there's any baseball to talk about because there's nothing happening.
There isn't much, but I was thinking about this, and I want to see what you think. So I think I've fallen, I wouldn't call it a trap, and I'm not absolving Cashman or the Yankees here. But, whether you get the Twitter alerts, MLB trade rumors, which is great, I think we have to avoid falling into the trap to reacting every time another team makes a move and blaming Brian Cashman because this isn't a full rebuild like Colorado or Pittsburgh. They don't need everything, although I will say I don't think the Yankees roster is in good of a shape as others might think. They did win 94 games last year, especially now because Toronto, they're almost like, in terms of talent, they're kind of like the Dodgers in the sense of the American League, in my mind. Getting Dylan Cease and Okamoto yesterday and getting some other arms for their staff. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with Bo Bichette. Now, I know, the Yankees and Dodgers and Phillies are interested. We can talk about that in a minute. But I don't think we should get to the point where we're blaming Cashman for other teams making moves in areas where the Yankees don't necessarily need that type of help. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but do you give him – here's the problem. It's many years. It's many years. It's not just now. It's the frustration's been bubbling for a long time. And the problem is you saw they're wasting away on Aaron Judge's career. They're wasting away on Garrett Cole's career, right? These guys are not getting any younger, and their primes are in the final stages. And this is the problem. And they finally get to a World Series 2 years ago. They regress, and they don't do anything to get back over the hump. And I think that's where we're at right now. And that's why I don't give Cashman any leash, because you don't see it. You don't see the change in mindset. You don't see the want to put the team over because you have Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole to win a World Series. And it's very frustrating.
I'm not doing that. I agree with you. I'm not absolving him. And Max the King checking in, and he's saying what you're saying. Player development has been abysmal. They don't defend and run the bases. And I think
when's the last time they developed a hitter? When's the last time they developed a hitter? A position player. Like Jason Dominguez doesn't have it. Like, I don't understand what's going on.
The big issue that I have, and if I have this, I wonder if the rest of Major League Baseball has this. The Yankees routinely overvalue their prospects, right? And Spencer Jones has been. Rondo agrees. Spencer Jones has been tearing it up in the minor leagues, and there's some other guys, but I'm not convinced Jason Dominguez is going to be a right fit in the outfield for them. Volpe, I've seen enough with Volpe. I know Cashman.
Unacceptable. Anthony Volpe going on another year at shortstop. It's completely unacceptable.
With that animated press scrum that Cashman did defending him a couple of years ago, he just looks worse right now. Right? I think the Yankees have a serious.
You know what? It's a slander, but I'll take Alvaro Espinoza at shortstop.
With the glasses, right?
And you know what? I don't mean to insult Alvaro Espinoza. I actually am trying to insult Anthony Volpe.
So here's my thing, right? Apparently the Yankees reportedly have made an offer to Bellinger. We don't know what that offer is, but with what Baltimore has done and with what Toronto has done, and apparently the Red Sox have reportedly made an aggressive offer to Alex Bregman. I don't know if just bringing back Bellinger here in a dull offseason where your highlight is giving Trent Grisham the qualifying offer and Grisham taking it.
Dear Lord.
I don't know if just bringing back Bellinger here is enough. Now, listen, losing Luke Weaver and Devin Williams, I mean, Weaver really trailed off last year. Williams had his spots finished strong, but you're still losing.
Oh, Williams can go ruin the Mets. I won't miss Williams at all. I hope he blows 26 saves with the Mets.
I think he had a 5 ERA, something like that. I think his general body of work wasn't good. But I'm just saying, you got to replace the innings in the bullpen. That's the thing. I know they brought Yarbrough back.
I have a bigger problem. What are we starting the season with the rotation? Because Cole's not ready. Rodon's not ready. It's Cam Schlittler like your number 2? Like, what are we?
So what I wonder is, did they make a move? Zach Gallen is out there, right? Ranger Suarez is out there. I wonder if they do something like that. I wonder if they, because those games count. We've seen it. They'll catch up and they'll bite you, right? They ended up in a tie with Toronto and they fell short. Toronto won the division and you played that first round at home. So those games do matter. They do matter. So I wonder if they do something, to deepen the rotation a little bit. But, so if Bellinger doesn't come back, I don't think Kyle Tucker's happening, because I do think Tucker's going to make more than Bellinger. And I don't think that's in the Yankees' plans right now to jack up the payroll that much. And then the conversation now, the Yankees are being linked to Bo Bichette.
The Grisham, first of all, the Grisham qualifying offer, snafu, and that's not even that's being nice, calling it a snafu, is enough to get most GMs fired on by itself. Okay. And then to say, well, they only could do Bellinger or Bichette, right? Tucker is a definite no, right, to your points from what we hear. But if they bring back Bellinger, they can't do Bichette. If they do Bichette, they can't do Bellinger. Why the hell not?
Right. Well,
why are we doing this? You can't have both game with the New York Yankees. And I don't want to hear it's because of the Grisham mistake, because Cashman has to own that and not let that hold the team back from getting everything else you need. And what I would do here, if you're hell-bent on keeping Volpe, right? Hell-bent on keeping Volpe, and I can't convince anyone anything different, I would bring it back Bellinger, and he can play so many positions. It's great. I would also bring in Bichette to play second.
Yeah.
And then I would look at it, and I probably like Jazz more than you, but I would look at trading Jazz because he has incredible value and that's what you get an arm for. Probably trading Jazz.
Well,
let
Jazz is
Bichette
going
play
into the last
second.
year of his deal, right? So
Yeah, and let Bichette play second until you deem Volpe really terrible and you want to move him to short. I know Bichette's not good in the field, but his bat is what we really getting him for here.
So here's the problem that you and I have, and it's not our fault. I look back, and my example on this is going into the 2009 season, right? So we remember when the Yankees, were gluttonous in their approach. Well, we have something, we're going to go get more of it, right? So going to that 2009 season, you have Sabathia, then you go get A.J. Burnett, and then you get Teixeira, right? And then they go win the World Series. And I think that's the world that you and I still live in. And we keep right now it's $280 million. But, my problem is the roster construction that's getting you to that point. You see what I'm saying?
I love this. The Max with the Jazz is a sizzle guy. Let him go sizzle somewhere else. I don't have the time and patience for those guys. So I have patience when he produces, but yes, like at times, and you saw base running mistakes and things like that. Cannot tolerate that, especially from the sizzle guy. I'm going to call him sizzle guy, and that's a great word for the show because beef is sizzling, and Jazz is going to be my sizzle beef the whole year. The other thing, Seth, about the Yankee teams up until the last World Series in 2009, not only were they willing to sign pieces, but those pieces were compliments because they were still developing players, right? And it's about stopped at 2009, right? After that, you see that stopped, but the Andy Pettitts don't come out of the system anymore, right? The Bernie Williams don't come out of the system anymore. The Jorge Posadas don't come out of the system anymore. When everyone talks about the way the Yankees spent when they won World Series, they were also developing damn good baseball players that were the core of their team. The core four were developed by the New York Yankees.
Well, that's right? The problem I have with people that compare the Dodgers to the Yankees, right? And I've used that very argument. Sure, the Yankees went out and they bought guys that helped them get over the top, but you had Jeter, you had Bernie, you had Rivera, you had these homegrown guys, right? So it wasn't all about, like, who of the Dodgers? Who's come out of their minor league system, right? Yeah. So it's different. People want to say that, and it's really different. Yeah, the money might be similar, for the era, but it's just, in my mind, the way you go about it is a little bit different. By the way, he's on fire.
I guess to sum it up,
do you know this guy, Max the King?
Dude, he's freaking on a roll here.
He's on a roll. He's had a couple of iced coffees this morning. And Max,
right.
Hey, I don't mean to jump in, but I agree with you, Max. I do say to people that, I think Stick Michael, Bob Watson, they get credit for 96. They get credit for 98. I think you could even put those guys, on the hook for 99. You want to give Cashman one, maybe two? Okay, I'll do that, but I'm not giving him more than that. I know he might have been calling the shots for a while, but I'm with you. I agree.
I give Cashman. Cashman was given the keys, and he had a fully functional, beautiful, sports car, right? And he drove it, and that's all he had to do. He had to drive it, and then when it started needing oil change and new tires and things like that, you can see that he took care of that as well as I took care of my last car, and it wasn't good. So.
I don't think, and you and I have been in the working world for a while now, and it's no fault of anybody's, but when you're in a job for 30 years, I think there's it's human nature. It's not a bad thing. You're comfortable, right? I think there's a certain sense of complacency that probably sets in.
The working world sounded really suspect, by the way.
I know.
Like, maybe you could have rephrased that. I don't know.
Working world? What's wrong with that?
It's a certain connotation of working.
Oh, yeah.
My mind is somewhere else.
That's all right. No, I mean, so that's I don't think anybody should have a 30-year job. I just don't. I think you need new ideas, new blood. I think you need – I'm not questioning whether or not the Yankees have adjusted to the analytics era. I'm not on the inside. Based on what I read, I think they have. But I think you're probably at the point where you need a new voice. And here's my thing on Boone, okay? And I think we'll have plenty of time to talk about this as the season goes on. My thing on Boone is, Joe Torre went from 96 to 07, right? And then I'm not saying he was forced out, but, it wasn't a mutual parting of the ways, right? So, Boone has had a bit longer, a similar rope now, and he hasn't won a World Series. So, when I know everybody likes him, I know the room, as they like to call it, I get it. The room is receptive to him, and Aaron Judge, he's his biggest advocate, at least in the media. But, when do we start to hold him accountable?
I think we've been holding accountable forever, that we've given up because we know that no one in the organization will hold them accountable. I can't believe we're talking about Aaron Boone on January 4th.
I know this was not on my itinerary.
I need to open my bottle of gin that I did not finish on New Year's. And if we keep talking about Aaron Boone, I'm going to finish my gin.
I struck a nerve.
I actually will give you one exception to the 30-year employment. And I'm going to go off the rails for a minute because it's a great story. As we know, and we discussed the other day, the Barnes & Noble in our hometown in Nanuet is closing after 33 years.
Yes.
And my first real job was with Barnes & Noble, did it for over a decade, mostly in the early 2000s. I did not work in the Nanuet store, but it was my hometown store. Anyway, Let's move on here. I will give a shout out. I visited the other day because my first store manager, Jocelyn Ford, still works for Barnes & Noble, and I wanted to check in before that store closed. And she's been with the company for 52 years.
Oh, my.
52 years, and will finally retire when the store closes. So congratulations to Jocelyn. But I wanted to make one exception to your 30-year employment rule because 52 years is a hell of a run in one company. And you'll never see that anymore. Anyway.
It's not everywhere. I guess let me rephrase. It's an industry like this. I think an industry like this.
Yes. I know where you were going with it.
My wife and I were talking today, when she's done teaching, she'll have over 30 years in the school district that she's in. I want her to stay as long as she can. So,
well, if the Steinbrenners are running the school district, she will stay as long as she wants.
So I guess to put a bow on it before we move on to a couple more things here. I'm not sure getting Bellinger back is good enough at this point.
No,
I'm not. Because look at Baltimore with Alonso. They brought back Eflin, who I know had an injury-riddled year last year. They've done some other things. Baltimore's made some moves. And then, Taylor Ward, they traded Grayson Rodriguez for Taylor Ward out in Anaheim. I still call them Anaheim. Not on my sports reports, but with you I am. And then Toronto with what they've done, I think the Red Sox are positioned to do well. So I'm not making any predictions right now, but you and I were kind of shooting the shit last night and talking off the record. See, I don't always play it by the book. I dropped an S-bomb right there, right?
I'm very proud of you. That is as controversial as Seth Beef Cantor gets.
You know why? Because it's just natural to say that. If I have to pause for a second or two and come up with another word, it just the whole thing sounds awkward. So anyway, I think as of now, and I don't think it's fair to judge it now, I think the Yankees could be positioned for a third or fourth place finish. And I know you and I say that every year, but I think it could be real. I do.
Yeah. It's one of these years is going to happen, right? It's inevitable. And so I think, will it be this year? Probably good shot.
But here's my problem, right, with Boone, the whole Boone thing. What's the excuse going to be? It's almost like I feel there's a built-in excuse now because Cole might not come back until probably June, right? And then Rodon's going to start the season on the IL, and then
someone else will get hurt.
Right. I love the people that say if they stay healthy. You and I both know we've been watching sports a long time. No team stays healthy 100%. It never happens. So, if they stay healthy, in my mind, is kind of a cop-out. But my point is, what's the reason going to be? If they have a bad year this year, what's the reason going to be this time? What is it?
And your team has to be deep, and they're not deep.
They're not. They're not. They're really not. But we can get into the roster construction a little later on. I will say with the Mets, I do think the Mets, I think it's wide open for them to go and get Kyle Tucker. I think, they're about $40 million under what their payroll was last year. So I think they have the room right now. And I think their minor league system is pretty solid. I think it's well positioned to the point where if they wanted to make a run, maybe not during the offseason, but make a run at a guy like Tarek Skubal, depending on how the Tigers do, maybe that's something they can do. I think they're better positioned for a move like that than the Yankees are.
Listen, the Mets are going to spend. Are they going to spend wisely? I don't know. They have an owner who promised them the world. Right now, on paper, they're not a good roster. It's way too early, though. You know my problem? The baseball offseason is actually terrible.
It's bad.
Hot stove isn't hot anymore. Yeah. And it drags on. You have all these really great players. This has been going on for like the last 3-4 years. It's getting worse. And it's worse this year because this is the last year of the CBA, and teams are not aggressive until a new CBA comes out, right?
Yeah.
So these signings, Bichette should be signed already. Bellinger should be signed already.
Tucker.
There's nothing going on, Seth. It really sucks. The winter meetings are terrible. So even this point last year, Soto had signed with the Mets. So it's getting worse.
Yeah,
and we're going to lose a whole season. We're going to lose a whole season after this.
I'm convinced of it. I have no inside knowledge. I'm just reading the tea leaves here. I think 27 is done. I do.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's the worst kept secret out there right now. Nobody said that to me, but I think we're headed for trouble in 27. I definitely
do. Yeah. And that makes the Mets not say bringing back Diaz even weirder.
Yeah.
Because I guess he didn't want to. He was supposedly mad they brought in Williams, which is very strange.
They didn't tell him or something.
Closer, and whatever. That was just a weird situation.
But I do think the Mets need to address their starting pitching. You cannot go into the season with Nolan McLean being at the top of your rotation. So
who is Nolan? Is that John McClane's cousin?
You gotta go out. You got to go out and get a guy like Ranger Suarez. You got to go out and get a guy like Zach Gallen. You got to do something because, in that division, obviously Philly with Schwarber coming back and Atlanta getting better. I just, I don't think the Marlins, what they did last year, I can't believe we're talking about the Marlins here on January 4th, 7 minutes to a football Sunday. But I guess my point is I think the NL East, I think it's legit. And I think, Clayton McCullough, their manager coming over from the Dodgers, I think he's building a culture there. And, you hear of the Marlins and a lot of, they're reluctant to deal major league talent. I think they could stick around. So my point is I think the Mets they got to focus on that rotation and do something to boost it a bit. Yeah. So
the Marlins never traded Alcantara, did they? Either pitcher. So yeah, interesting.
So, all right, on to the Knicks. So I was really itching. I know they lost to the Sixers last night, third in a row. So I have family in Philly, and they love every chance they get. They love to start a group chat. I won't hold it against them. Maybe I will. But they love to start group chats, rubbing it into me about the Eagles and the Giants. Love it. They still get on me about Saquon. Whatever. I don't care. Like Saquon, apparently the Giants live rent-free in his head because he took out billboards for an insurance company by MetLife Stadium. You've probably seen them. They're right by the airport. With the Knicks, I really wanted to chide my cousins last night anyway because I thought, even Embiid's back now, I thought the Knicks would take them and it'd be a nice bounce-back game. They struggled a bit. I can't get crazy about games in December and January. I think they've had a tough schedule in terms of how often they play. The lack of defense right now, it concerns me just a bit. And I think, having Josh Hart out has hurt them. And I think Mitchell Robinson, the load management, I think that's impacted. He did play last night. I can't get crazy yet. And, the other thing that gives me some pause, they play the Pistons coming up. That'll be a tough one. The Pistons are legit. But the schedule softens after that. They play a bunch of Western teams that really aren't very good. A few of them on the road, so you got to factor that in. I do think they'll turn it around. To me, the biggest takeaways are Mike Brown using the bench, right? And I don't. Here's my other thing, and this bothers me a little bit. I wanted Tibbs to stay. right? And I think, the thought was he's only going to get you to a certain point, and his track record says that. But, there are more bench pieces this year. Tibbs didn't have a lot to work with last year. That's the thing. So I think to put this all on him and to blame him, I think is a little short-sighted.
Yeah. And so with the Knicks, I'm glad you're taking this approach. I thought you'd come on today and be a lot more nervous. I got bigger winter sports issues than the Knicks. The Knicks, I actually think, and listen, the regular season, stay healthy. This is the things we worry about. If OG Anunoby gets hurt again, the Knicks are screwed. Because I keep saying he's the glue.
Their record without
they're not winning.
Very good.
They're not winning without OG. And you can see how much they struggle without Hart, right? Stay healthy, number one. Number two, using the bench and the minutes, this is great. I would say it actually may have lost the team a couple of games because of how many minutes he gives to the bench, that they've made the games harder on themselves against some teams. Yeah. But that's okay. Bigger prize down the line. Yeah. These games are not critical. If, like last night, you said they lose the game, I don't see a need for any alarm here. Okay.
No, so I'm not there yet. And I do think so. The Pistons are tough, obviously. I think, they match up well enough against the Pistons. They don't scare me. Like if they played the Pistons in a series, it wouldn't be the first round the way things are lining up now. But, they got the Clippers at home, then the Suns, the Blazers, the Kings, and, these are not your father's Warriors here, the Warriors aren't very good. So I think out of that stretch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I don't think asking for 4-2 or 5-1. 5-1 might be pushing it, but I don't think asking for 4-2 is out of the question. And then, this is what, Milwaukee's not good. And we keep talking about Giannis, right? So there are two things with the whole Giannis thing. You're probably the way things are structured, you're probably going to need a third team to bring Giannis. It's not going to be so easy. And then is that the type of deal you make in season? Because you're changing your entire style if you bring a guy like that in. So, it's not, for those that say, well, Giannis, okay, he's going to be a great fit here. Let's make the deal. It's not going to be so easy.
I wouldn't do it mid-season. I'd run this team all the way to the finish and then assess after the season if that's the move you want to make. Come better for better or worse. I don't want to make that move now. That is a franchise-altering decision with a championship contending team. It's very dangerous to do. Then who are you trading on that out in that move? I mean, so Cat, Hart, OG, like what do you like? I'm terrified. Well, I don't want to do it now.
Well, I think Towns would probably have to be part of that deal. So is Milwaukee going to take him? That's why I'm saying you're going to need a third team. I think for money and I think for talent as well. It can be done, but I think you're changing the complexion of your team. So you and I both know that it's going to take a little while to kind of redefine who you are, and that might come at the expense of wins and losses, and that might knock down your seeding a little bit. So listen, if you have a chance to get Giannis, I think you go get Giannis, right? If there's a package that you can't refuse and you think you can make it work, go do it. But it gives you some pause making a move like that during the season. And again, you got to find the right third team that's going to get involved here.
Yeah, and I will say, unlike Brian Cashman, Leon Rose is not scared to make moves.
No, he's not. He's not. We saw that with Mikal Bridges. So yeah.
And for Max's reference, Seth is the legacy basketball guy. Since he was a little bouncing baby, he was bouncing basketballs. My knowledge of basketball, I watched a ton of 90s Knicks with my grandfather because that was his number one love. Yeah. And that ended when the Knicks really ended in like 2000. And then I hadn't watched a lick of basketball up until like the last 3 years. And now the last couple of games, I've watched the Knicks over the Rangers.
You're choosing the Knicks over the Rangers. Yeah, that's amazing. I never thought I'd see that happen.
Insane.
So let's dive into that, before we get into some football here, or just go our separate ways. So I want to get your perspective on the Winter Classic. This is your world. It's not mine. I have some thoughts, but I gotta give you the floor when it comes to the hockey.
The NHL had it right. Cold weather city, New Year's Day afternoon when everyone's home, right? Holiday. And I understand there's a NCAA basketball issue, right? It was an event. You knew what day it was. The atmosphere was great. We've kind of lost the plot here, right? Winter Classic in South Florida on January 2nd at 8 p.m. Like, I had forgotten all about it. There's a different product the NHL has called the Stadium Series, and they've done things like LA games and things like that that are done a different time in like February for kind of a different flavor for an outdoor game. That's what that should have been. They've lost the plot with the Winter Classic. And I guess that's what you wanted to hear. And that's what I think.
So I'm with you. I remember the Winter Classic. It's amazing. At the time, I didn't even know it was happening, or maybe I knew. I probably knew, but I forgot. And I remember they played at Ralph Wilson Stadium. It was the Sabres and the Penguins in the snow, right? And they had to stop the game a couple of times. So to me, a couple of issues, and we talked about this the other day. To me, there are a couple of things here. Winter Classic, winter weather focused city. Right now, didn't you say they're doing it in Bristol next year? Isn't that what they're doing?
So the word is, and I guess someone found out, something was leaked on the internet, that Bristol Motor Speedway, back to our NASCAR conversation, will host next year's Winter Classic, Bristol, Tennessee, in a racetrack.
Yeah.
Again.
Right.
And on January 2nd again.
Yeah. So my issue is, a few issues. Winter weather city, right? Okay. And I do think Bristol's a step better than having it in a stale baseball stadium. I've been down there. It's not a good stadium. It's stale. There's no character. It's very expensive. All of them are these days. But I just, my problem is having a Winter Classic game down there and then marketing it with beach props near the ice, like umbrellas and, taking this whole beach thing. It doesn't make sense to me. It's not the right fit. You want to do it as part of the Stadium Series, great. And the roof was open, by the way. But then you have these coaches, and no one's going to pity the coaches, but it's like 65, 70 degrees, and they're wearing these like jackets you'd wear outside, which were nice. The jackets were nice.
The one thing we learned in the Winter Classic, because the roof was open, was that they better get James Dolan to cut the roof off of MSG, because the Rangers being undefeated in outdoor games is insane. And the biggest problem they have is that there's a roof on Madison Square Garden. So somebody's got to get the wrecking ball out and knock the roof off of MSG, and then maybe the Rangers will be a contender again.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, wow. Look at that. No time's come off the clock, and already there's a penalty in the Giants-Cowboys game. How about that? Isn't that fitting?
That's Shorts holding on the Giants.
Anyway, so that's my issue this year, where it was. It didn't have any juice to me. I know you're down on the Rangers. It was nice.
Down is not even though down. You're understating this. The Rangers are a bottom 3 team in the NHL right now. Yeah. And they're not, so record-wise, they're not bad enough. And here's the worst thing that could happen is that you become mediocre, right? And you're not bad enough to rebuild or get draft picks, and you're not good enough to be a contender. So just so I can put it in perspective for you on how bad the Rangers really are, because the record, the standings don't tell the story, because the Eastern Conference is really bad. So in the Eastern Conference, there are 10 teams vying for 2 wild card spots, right? Yeah. The Rangers are 2 points out of a wild card spot, which is hilarious. They are 9th out of the 10 teams.
Yeah.
But it gets better. In most cases, they've played 3 more games than everyone else. So when that levels out, and it's going to level out, this is a bottom tier hockey team. And again, the owner is and the GM are complicit for allowing this to happen. Chris Drury was handed keys to a very nice car.
Yeah.
The wheels have fallen off. The engine stopped working. There's breaks of fluid all over the ground. And he's just shrugging his shoulders And then the owner of said car is like, well, don't worry, Chris.
Yeah.
I'll
So
just get
I
it."
want to get
I don't
to
know,
that because I can speak to this, and I know you weren't as into the Knicks at that time as I was. Although I was thinking about this yesterday, I probably went for a period of 10 years where I watched maybe 5 Knicks games.
Oh, wow.
And you're talking to a guy who watched like every game in the 90s. But the Winter Classic, right? When I first watched it, New Year's Day, winter weather city, only game in town. That's it. So they played in a warm weather climate this year, right? And they had, I don't think they had any games going against it the other day, but they did have a few games that day. So I wonder about the marketing. That's all.
It's not special. It's not.
All right. So on what's happening with the Rangers, I'm not as in tune with it as you are. Like you're on all the message boards, you know it all, everything.
Message boards. What is this, like AOL?
Twitter, I don't know.
2002?
But
the hell the message board?
I find it interesting that the Rangers
are you in chat rooms still?
Yeah, AOL chat rooms. Yes, yeah.
Kids these days will never know.
44M and J. Yeah. All right. So my wife and I actually, it was me. We broke up years ago, and then we were like each other's top matches on an online dating site. It was really amazing. So
okay.
I still hear about it to this day. But it's interesting. It's interesting to me that the Rangers and Knicks, in terms of ownership, and we're going over here, but who cares? I mean, the Giants, whatever. The game doesn't mean anything.
The Giants, whatever.
Yeah. It's interesting to me that the stance on ownership with the Rangers and Knicks has kind of flipped, right? Like, I mean, we remember, I don't know if the Rangers are as dysfunctional as the Knicks were, like with Isaiah Thomas and all those, just off the court things that went on.
Halfway there. They're halfway there.
But it's Dolan now with the Knicks is kind of like a martyr. And then like Rangers fans kind of look at him, right? The way Knicks fans looked at him in the early 2000s.
Yeah. I'm worried that Drury is becoming the next Isaiah, and he's got some kind of magic potion that Dolan buys into, and allows him to continue to drive this franchise into the ground. And that's my biggest fear right now.
So, Max the King, who I know is a big Canadians fan, said to me or he posted on the chat, a Shesterkin trade to Carolina makes mutual sense for both clubs. It's not even funny, but the Rangers won't do it for appearances. What do you think?
Well, Shesterkin has a no movement clause, as does 75% of the team and the NHL for that sake. So, and I know like players sometimes agree to being moved and what have you, but yeah, that would never happen. Appearances or not, to Carolina for sure. Yes, Carolina's Achilles heel has been goaltending, so it's very astute of Max, and very correct that they would need a goalie to win anything. But the issue here is what he's hitting on is they have a goalie who just turned 30 on a long contract. And much like the Yankees with Aaron Judge, certain pieces of this team are aging actually. And there's nothing to replace. There's nothing else happening. There's no relief coming. Nobody, again, the Rangers don't produce anyone either. God, this sounds like the Yankees. The Rangers can't produce an offensive player since Alexei Kovalev. Like the Rangers haven't actually. This is terrifying.
Alexei Kovalev. Wow.
The Rangers haven't homegrown an offensive talent, a top tier offensive talent in this league. That is mortifying.
Number Absolutely 27 in your program.
Fucking mortifying.
Yeah.
Like I cannot believe that, and it's terrible. And you cannot win in this league because of it. Their top draft picks flamed out, Kakko and Lafreniere, and it could be their fault. It could be the Rangers' fault. Whatever it is. They didn't make it. And you can't produce a team in a hard salary cap league that way. It's even worse in the NHL because you have a hard cap. So if you can't produce your own players, that helps your cap. You are really screwed, right? You're really screwed.
Yeah. All right, so I got
Anderson.
I got one more thing before we say goodbye. Is there anything else you had?
No, the Rangers. I'm getting heartburn.
Sorry to do that.
I really need that. I really need that gin that's in the kitchen.
Yeah. By the way, Max the King, once he revealed
He's on
himself
it
to me
today.
offline, and I know who he is, this guy, I mean, the conversations you and him could have about hockey. He is a
Great.
big-time Canadians fan, or Canadiens.
We
Right?
should go to a game. I would love to go to a game in Montreal. I would love to.
I think Montreal, I'll tell you, with my full-time job, I've been up to Quebec City a lot, and I think it's really a quaint town. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's clean. There's a lot there. I actually went on a Expos and Nordiques spending rampage when I was up there years ago.
You love the Expos and Nordiques merch.
I do. I totally do.
Love it.
And I think, the baseball stadium there, it's historic. The Expos had an affiliate there. It's a great city. We went to the hockey arena next to Lake Colisée, now the Pepsi Colisée, that I think is still standing. Or maybe it's not. I'm not sure, but I saw it there. And I'd love to see Quebec get another team, because that arena I was in was definitely hockey ready. We saw a World Juniors game, actually. So anyway, I think Montreal is really a wonderful town. But anyway, so I want to dive into this WFAN thing, because I have a personal connection to it. And I've had a lot of friends who've had to move on, unfortunately. And I want to say that we live in a world now. It's different than when you and I grew up with our parents and our dads in the car, both big sports fans, hearing the 2020 sports flash, and really having no other means to get your scores, right? I mean, that was it. That was appointment listening. Now the 15 and 45 sports at 15 and 45, WCBS 880 sports. We're not in a world that requires that anymore, right? I mean, we do it too, right? We get our updates on X, Twitter, scores, you name it. It's all instantaneous. So I understand that. I don't want to be naive, and just because I do work for SiriusXM now, sit here and say, well, God damn it, no more updates on WFAN. How could this happen? I understand why. It's just a different world. I do want to say, for me, that was a dream come true. Even being on WCBS 880 at first was a dream come true. And, going into that setting, for me, there was an intimidation factor. Like, oh my God, guys like me growing up, John Minko, right? Rich Ackerman, even Erica Herskowitz, all those people, Mark Ernay, who's been a friend of mine and really gave me my first break, or gave me the opportunity to get my first break. Going into that world was intimidating for me at the time. And I have to tell you, there were no egos there. They were all gracious people. They went out of their way to train me. They were very patient with me. Guys like Peter Schwartz, all of them. So I wanted to express my appreciation, because, having that opportunity, I was there for about 5 years, and having that opportunity, it's one of the greatest personal accomplishments of my life. And the fact that so many doors were open for me because of other people, and their patience and how accommodating were, really, it meant something for me. And, I'm still with SiriusXM now, as a lot of people know, and I still think there's a place for updates, and I think why it works on SiriusXM, they have a lot of guests, they have a lot of channels. You promote what they're doing in the updates, but you do it in an informational sort of way that has relevance and still brings value to the listener. So I look forward to continuing there. It's been a few years since I've been on the fan. So and this is not, I don't want to make it about, I know people have their reactions to Craig Carton. It's not about that for me. I don't really, all I know is what I've read. But, in terms of the updates and the experience that I had there, I wanted to share that before we go.
Yeah, you do incredible work. And it's always great to hear your voice on mainstream broadcasting. But WFAN is a fabric of our childhood, of our youth. Yes. And my grandfather and my uncle listened religiously. That's why I listen religiously. Even now, the product is not great these days. And I guess you can't replicate greatness, right? Like Mike and the Mad Dog was greatness.
Yeah.
So maybe our expectations sometimes are a little out of line as well. But I still listen, because it's sports talk radio is something that much like a book, a physical book, like we were talking about earlier with books. Sports talk radio is something that is like a piece of the community. Like it's a public activity. It's something, and it's fun. Listen to us talking about sports right now. So I truly hope WFAN finds its way and continues on, and the product improves.
And
people will, like you have a career, I can actually make a living doing it instead of playing around on this hokey podcast.
I will say, I've never been a believer in the people that say, well, it's going to disappear for good, right? Terrestrial radio is going to disappear for good. I don't see that happening. I just feel like, it'll obviously still be here. And I think there's a lot of value to it still being here. It's just a matter of how people use it, right? So, I consume my media in a lot of different ways. So, I finally am into podcasts now. It took, about 5 or 6 years for me to get into it, but I see the value in podcasts. But then there are times where I switch over and I work for Sirius, and I think Sirius is a great platform, and there's content that I want to hear on Sirius. But it's more national, I would say, in scope. And then there are times, obviously, where a big story breaks in New York, right? And you need to hear the New York angle and the New York perspective. And that's when I go back to WFAN. So I don't buy the argument that that type of radio is going to disappear for good, because I don't think it will. I think you've seen some consolidation. WCBS 880 going away, which really broke my heart, because I thought that was a very valuable station growing up. And that's one of the first stations, along with Bloomberg Radio, where I had my first on-air experience in New York City. And that was a tough one to take. But I don't think a station like that, in my mind, a station like that is still, if you've been, and I'm not doing this to be arrogant, but if you've been on WFAN, in my mind, you've made it in some form. Whether you're an engineer, whether you're a producer, whether you're an update anchor, whether you're a host, whether you're the program director. If you're on that station, and I still think this holds true, then in my mind, you've made it. And to me, that's how I see it.
Yep. I would agree. Very well said, Seth. Very nicely done. Glad you talked. We were able to weave in WFAN into our premiere of the Sunday Beef.
Yeah. And just to close on that, I do wish my friends there and people that, worked with me and spent time with me, I wish them the best. They're extremely talented, but beyond that, Jason, they're just wonderful people. Every person that I've dealt with there is no ego, no arrogance. So, well, this is New York City radio. You're on your own. It was not like that in a place like that. Yeah. And to me, that was valuable and meant a lot. Yeah. All yours.
That is a telling. As you've gotten to this level, you've had that support. Which is huge, and especially in that industry. So well said. As we go into the final day of regular season football, I cannot believe we're at week 18, by the way. That is
it flies. The football season goes
Nothing goes faster, right? Nothing goes faster than a football regular season. So we've unfortunately reached that point. Maybe it's better off that the Giants and Jets don't have to play anymore. But here we are at week 18. It was great to catch up on a podcast again, Seth. We've got a lot more things we're going to work on here. So we'll try to do this weekly, I think, is the idea. I am toying with a show on mornings that I might be doing during the week. I don't know how often, but if the mood strikes me and I want to complain about the Rangers game from the night before,
instant reaction, rapid reaction,
then I'll hop on and do something. So I'm working with that. And then maybe some of our old friends will join us at some point as well. Today, Diamond Dan is flying back. He did a Dad of the Year thing yesterday, by the way. He decided on Friday night that he was going to take the kids to the football game in Tampa yesterday.
He was there in the rain.
Yeah, he flew down yesterday morning with the boys, and he was trying to convince me to go. And then I looked at flights, and that just was not a possibility. And he's flying back right now to Massachusetts with the kiddos. They had a blast. It looked like, even with the rain, obviously it was a really good game. But that was like a last minute thing. That's why I said Dad of the Year move. Really cool.
That's really
so he's doing that. Our buddy our buddy Matt in Chicago is very much under the weather. So hopefully a speedy recovery for him. He has the really awful flu, and pneumonia. That's Mr. Soriano. So he is struggling. So we'll get this thing going. Sunday's a really great day to have a show. The times will vary, I'm sure, depending on what's going on. But that'll be the idea for the Sunday beef. We've all brought the beef today.
Yeah, we did. When we last did this, right? Like, I'm lucky. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people who are highly regarded in the industry, and our goal was to really bring something different to the table every week. But I feel like, and we certainly want to have guests. I think they add a lot to the show. We want to have the right guests, and I feel like we can do that. And I still have a number, if not all, of those relationships. But I wanted to do something. If I'm guilty of something, and people say this to me, I'm a little too scripted, right? I'm a little too by the book, and I told you that last night. So I wanted to do something off the cuff where we kind of just shoot the shit. See, I did it again. There you go.
There you go. And we can always hop on impromptu. It doesn't have to be planned. But nice of you. You said words twice that are twice more than you normally say. And then so this is good. I'm going to actually try. I've never done this before. So I'm going to look at getting these uploaded onto an Apple and Spotify
I love it.
Thing. So I'll be looking at that later today with an RSS feed host and things like that. So as long as it's recorded properly, the audio, then that'll be possible. So off we go. Anyway,
I guess I'm going to go watch the Giant game now. As bad as things get with this team, I still come back every week. So,
I'm looking forward to the 8:00 game tonight, though. That is where. Let me just close here. I think Baltimore wins this game tonight.
What's the line on that game? Got to be close.
Yeah, I just have a hard time, even with all of their dysfunction this year, not thinking that when push comes to shove and they're favored by 3.5.
I'm comfortable with that.
Lamar and the Ravens will be triumphant here. I think it will lead to the removal of Mike Tomlin in Pittsburgh as well. However, I think Mike Tomlin's going to end up going to something like Miami. And I don't think he'll be willing to play for Joe Schoen. And I don't think your scenario earlier where they would fire Schoen because Tomlin wants to play there is something Giants ownership would do.
I agree with that. It's not.
That is not a Giants thing to do. I actually don't even think Tomlin would even try to do that. And those are my football predictions for Week 18 and Black Monday tomorrow.
All right, sounds good. All right, hey, listen, thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. And we will be back with you. It might be spontaneous. We'll promote it. Don't worry about that. But thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Stay well.
Enjoy football. Bye-bye.